everyone. Good day. I am Casido, and I will be reporting expository techniques of technical writing. Expository techniques in technical writing. Expository techniques writing is a writing that seeks to explain, illuminate, or expose. This type of writing can include essays, newspaper and magazine articles, instruction manuals, textbooks, encyclopedia articles, and other forms of writing, so long as they seek to explain. Expository techniques writing differs from other forms of writing, such as fiction and poetry. In fact, this lesson itself is an example of expository writing. The expository essay is a tool that is often used in the academic world. If you attended school, it's highly likely you've been written one. Most expository essays have an introductory paragraph in which a thesis or objective is stated. Several main body paragraphs that prove or explain what is in the introduction, and concluding a paragraph in which everything is summed up. When writing an expository essay, it's important to write the assumption that your audience has little to no background knowledge about the main topic. Your duty as a writer is to provide the reader with as much information as you can. The reader should feel as if he or she has learned something after reading your essay. Writing techniques makes the report interesting and easier to understand. These techniques are definition, description of mechanism, description of process, classification, comparison and contrast, cause and effect, illustration, partition, analogy, and interpretation. So the first one is definition. That need for defining happens when the report uses technical terms which are not familiar to the reader, or when common terms are used in a technical way. So in short, definition is any term that you feel is not your reader's vocabulary. So the less expert your readers are, the more you need to define terms clearly. So it when happens when the report uses technical terms which are not familiar to the reader, or when the common terms are used in technical writing way can be formal or informal. So there are two classifications of definition: formal definition and informal definition. So informal definition, to make sure the technical writer is understood, he extends a definition beyond a single sentence. The common techniques in extending are examples, analogy and description, details, concrete examples and instances, and word derivative. Formal definition, this is an equation-like statement which has three parts: term, genus, and differentia. Term, word to be defined. Genus, group or class the term belongs to. Differentia, the distinctive characteristic of the term, distinguish it from the other members of the same class. So, for example, triangle is a plane figure bounded by three straight lines and has three angles. So, the term is the triangle, and is a plane figure is the genus, and the meaning is, the differentia is the bounded by three straight lines and has three angles. So, therefore, gina-describe siya. And the next is description. Description. Using description is a way of writing about the way things appear, the way they are constructed, and the way they act. There is a great need for manufacturers to write clear and technical manuals to explain their products. There are two kinds of description: description of mechanism and description of a process. Description of a mechanism. This deals with the physical nature of whatever is being discussed, the purpose of the device, and how its parts work separately and with one another and as a whole. Mechanism, assembly of movable parts having one part fixed, with respect to a frame of reference and designed to produce an effect. All parts are operate and function properly. Description of process. A process series of steps. A description of each of the steps in the process in the order in which they occur. So, it explains the arrangement of sequence in chronological order. So, in organization, it is similar to mechanism description, except that the part is part by part. So, in sa this process of description is step by step. And the question is, was it what is it? What is its function? Where and when does it take place? Who or what performs it? How does it work, or what are its principal steps? So, process description, when you need to explain how a process works or the steps the reader needs to follow to assemble something or complete another task. You write out the process step by step and providing as much explanation as necessary for each step. The next is comparison and contrast. It involves a discussion of the subject in relation to other subjects, showing similarities and differences as the article goes along. So, in short, comparison and contrast is you need to present two or more subjects and write about their similarities and differences. Cause and effect. This explains a condition by tracing it to what produced the effect by showing what it will be produced. This discusses the reason why something is true or shows the result of some peculiar events or state of mind. Analogy. This compares the unfamiliar to the familiar words to make the unfamiliar more understands for the reader. Analogy is needed when the writer is called to explain different concepts. Classification. It is a systematic process of dividing materials into different classes or kinds. It also involves grouping similar units in a subclass which in turn falls under longer class. It is a useful technique when you have number of like things to discuss among which there are points of similarity and differences necessary for the reader to understand. So, in short, classification piece, you write about the characteristic of multiple subjects within one category. For example, you might write a blog a blog post about the types of expository techniques in writing. In the blog post, you explain each type of expository writing, covering their differences as well as their similarities. So, mao na siya classification. Partition. It divides the singular units into its components, steps, or aspects. Only singular units are partitioned, plural units are classified. Example, tree, roots, branches, leaves. Human body, desktop computer. So, partition is the act of dividing things into their components parts, very similar to classification, and a inevitable part of mechanism description and process description. Partition could be spatial, how each part looks. So, or functional ba siya, how each part works. So, muna siya partition. Analogy. This compares the unfamiliar to the familiar words to make the unfamiliar more understands for the reader. Analogy is needed when the writer is called to explain different concepts. Giving instruction. The purpose of giving instructions is to make the reader to do a specific operation. The reader is expected to act. Each step in the instruction is presented and clearly explained to the reader who should carry out to perform the operation. The last one is persuasion. The writer should keep in mind that this report is designed to convince the reader of his viewpoint and to get to take some action. Every time an idea is presented, the reader must be convinced that the idea presented is well reasoned and that the recommendation given is the best action to take.